Hey everybody, welcome into this week's episode of Tony's Spot on Fishing. I'm your host, Tony Kris, joined once again by Kris Mabrito.
Morning.
Morning. We're out here, we're at Diversey Harbor. We're gonna change things up. We're actually chasing perch today. We're gonna show you a lot of little tips, tricks, and techniques of how you can catch these fish. It's a little bit tricky, you know, the jumbos aren't as numerous as they used to be, but you can still find some perch here along the lake shore, especially this time of year. Season reopened June 15th, so here we are towards the end of June, and we're going to hopefully get in on some of this action. Kris, you ready?
Oh yeah.
Let's go do it. That's all this week on Tony's Spot on Fishing. Now we're going to you can run 2 rods here in Illinois. So 2 rods per angler. So what we're going to do is we're going to set up a slip bobber type setup, and we're going to have that out there just kind of dancing in the current. And then we'll actually have another rod set up basically with just a split shot and a hook. And we're actually going to work that rod back to us. Now when we set up a slip bobber, what we can do, we're probably going to run anywhere from about 10 feet to maybe even up to 18 feet. We're going to just kind of play around, see where we get our bites. So the bobber stop, what's nice is that can go right through the guides. You don't have to worry about it. You can fish a bobber deeper water like this. Now what I've done is just about maybe a foot, about 2 feet from my hook is a little split shot, just to give it a little bit of weight to help pull it down. And like I said, we got about 1.5 feet, maybe close to 2 feet, and I have a little 32nd ounce jig head, just like that. And that's where we're going to hook our minnow to. Now if you're running a jig head like this, we can hook the minnow right through the lips so he's sitting horizontal like that. And we'll show you how we rig them also for a standard hook when we're running the split shot. So let's grab a minnow first. And this is actually just a baby roach. We are going to go right through his lips, just like that. And you can see he's got the freedom to move. So we're going to go ahead. Like I said, I got this one set about 10 feet. We don't need to throw out too far. That bobber stops making its way. Boom. It's there. So we'll keep an eye on this one. Whoa, that didn't take long. Look at that. Literally flipped right in and ended up getting a bite. Okay, because 10 feet may be the magic depth right now. You know, a lot of times I have to even remind myself that these fish aren't going to really play around with it. Like when you're fishing a crawl or anything like that, pretty much you get that bite and you just got to kind of go for it. So put him back out. Now, let me show you the other setup, which is just a basic hook and a split shot. Now the split shot I like to run for this, it's actually a bullet weight split shot. So if there's any kind of vegetation, that's going to go right through the weeds a lot better than a round style split shot. And again, just about 2.5 feet of line, and then just a small hook. And we'll show you exactly how we hook now our minnow up when we're going this way. So for when we're going to actually fish it back to us, and we can let it pause and sit out there and he'll swim around, we're going to go right behind the dorsal fin. You don't want to go too thick into the meat. Just like so, just under the skin like that, and now he can swim around. And then we can cast him out just like so. Let it settle to the bottom. There we go. Now we can do a couple things. We can slowly work it back to us. Just a nice, easy lift and drop. Oh, missed one. We can work that bait back to us slowly, or if the bite allows us to, or is that the presentation, sometimes they'll sit right near the bottom and we'll have that bait out there and that minnow can swim around and do its thing. Play around with it. Sometimes they want it moving, sometimes they want it sitting still doing its own thing. So far, it seems they want a little bit of movement to it. So that seems to be, right off the bat here this morning, the presentation. Line, we're running 6-pound line. P-Line CX, it's a fluorocarbon-coated mono. Gives you plenty of invisibility, good stretch, good durability too around the rocks and stuff like that. Light to medium light action rod, so we can throw, if we have to throw a little heavier weight due to current. And also running a little longer rods for those slip bobbers will help too. Well, now we know what they want. Let's go catch them. Here we go. Oh yeah, here we go. First perch of the morning. Not a giant, but you know what? It's better than some of the real little guys they've been catching. Reports right after the opener, they had few reports of a couple jumbos, and then it kind of really got teeny. But that's not a bad start. We'd like them a little bit bigger than that, obviously, but nevertheless, right off the bat, and that was on that slip bobber. We're going to go ahead and get her back. And as far as keeping perch out here, it has to be, you get 15 per person. And, I'm definitely more about a selective harvest for sure. We don't want to be keeping little guys, stuff like that. To me, you get around that 8-inch mark, 9-inch mark, then we can start talking about keeping the perch. But 15 per person, let these little guys go back, let them grow up, and hopefully we're going to get a few keeper-sized ones today. Now, when I'm going to put my bobber rod down, I want to leave a little bit of slack to the actual line. And the reason for that is, there are smallies, of course, down here, and there's, always going to be some browns around, maybe even with the water temp still being very cold, only in the right around that 60-degree mark. It's not uncommon for a steelhead or a coho to be around. So if you get something like that, grabs a hold of that minnow, and it's off to the races, you want to have a little bit of time to be able to put down your rod that you're still fishing with or working back to you to be able to grab that slip bobber rod. So just leave a little bit of slack. And essentially, the rocks are at the base of these break walls. We're on this main jetty here over at Diversey, and these break walls are lined at the base with these big boulders, and we don't really have to throw out very far. The perch will sit pretty much at the base of those rocks and just out from it. And what's kind of nice, if you position yourself in a corner like this, you get that inside turn where you can fish down this shoreline with the rocks. You can also hit the corner and then down towards the jetty. So it's always, about getting out, getting a good area. All right, now we are going the wrong direction. See, these are those little, what I call the little dink perch. And that was on that still rod. I missed a good bite on the bobber. I couldn't get over to it quick enough and just left that still rod sitting. You're going to catch them. Unfortunately, you can't always catch bigger size perch, but those are the bait thieves that do live out here. But you know what? We'll take the action, that is for sure. Now, one thing you're noticing as I'm working this bobber, now we got a little bit of current. There's going to be current that's always coming in and out of the harbor here. And that's going to kind of push our slip bobbers one way or the other. And what you want to watch for is if you push up too close on the rocks, number one, you can hang up because as you're pushing in, you're getting shallower. But the other thing is that's where a lot of those gobies are living, and they will just steal your bait. They're an invasive species to Lake Michigan. So you never really want to come too shallow around those rocks. So anytime I start to see that bobber pushing a little too close, I'm going to get it out of there just so I don't lose bait to those little gobies. Missed him, but he did not miss me. Oh, he's off. Boy, oh boy. Literally every time I've tried to put this rod down to grab my other rod, that's when I get the bite. Strip me clean. And my slip bobber rod, I'm actually running a custom rod. It's got a lot of give to it. But those are the type of rods I really like for bobber fishing, where they have that super soft tip to it. And when you're running a longer rod or a noodle rod, you know, you're not necessarily going to do a hard hook setup. You're actually going to just kind of sweep up into it. The rod's going to set the hook. Basically, that rod will load up, and that spring action pulls that hook right back into them.
Little guy, what? It's a fish.
There we go. Boy, we're into him now. That's a little better one. There we go. How about that one there? That's definitely going the right direction there. A little bit better size. You know, I would say he is just on the verge of that keeper size. But he is still, in my opinion, just a hair small. He's probably sitting right at about 7. Yeah, 7.5, 8. Like I said, I'd like to get him around that 9-inch size. But pretty colorings on him. Yeah, that's slip bobber. And we're running 2 different types of minnows I bought. We got baby roaches and small fatheads, or what would otherwise be known as like a crappie minnow. Both minnows are producing. And I'll tell you right now, so far the slip bobber, about 10 feet down, that is the ticket. Go. Oh, this is a little guy again. See, and this is just the thing. Unfortunately, you have to weed through these little guys, just like that. I've got bass baits bigger than him. But that's all part of it. Got him, Kris? Little guy. Oh, doubles. A little nicer one there. Again, just shy of keeper for my liking, but you know, if you're looking for something to do, just catch some fish. Bring the kids on out here. I mean, it is a blast catching these little perch. And, you know, the bigger perch, they fight pretty good too. They'll give you, especially on the light action, they'll give you a good little tussle, so. But they're tasty, don't get me wrong. Boy, you get a handful of those jumbos, and I'll tell you, there's nothing better. Bread them up and deep fry them. That's good eats. Missed him again. This is why we bring plenty of bait down. Yeah, you never want to come out here with more or less than, 2-3 dozen minnows at least, because you'll burn through them quick between misses and fish caught and landed. So always have plenty of bait with you. That's a key. We also can run soft shells. That can get a little pricey, the frozen soft shells, but You know, a lot of times that can be a great perch bait. If they're not reacting to the minnows, frozen soft shells are a phenomenal choice. You can get them, really about the only shop I know of on a regular basis you can get them is Henry's here in the city. They're a little pricey, you got to pay market price for them, but it can be good. Downside is you start getting those gobies picking apart soft shells, and man, it gets expensive quick. So thankfully it's a good minnow bite going today, and seems to be the pattern for the last couple weeks now. So hopefully that sticks around. Makes it a lot easier to catch these guys. There we go. Every time I think about putting that rod down. Oh, that's a little baby rock bass. What the heck? Well, somebody took a bite out of, his tail fin there, but that was little baby Rocco. Well, look at that. Now we got a mixed bag going here. There we go. We're going the wrong direction again here, guys. Another little guy, but a perch nonetheless. Get him back in. I was able to pick up that drop shot, or the split shot rod. Let's see here. Just missed one as soon as we caught that little guy on the split shot rod. Bobber went down, missed that one. Now, you know, a lot of times guys will make the mistake, they say, well, I still got a minnow on there, and they just throw it right on back out. And it actually is a mistake to do that. If that minnow's dead and it's not swimming around, that's not really going to help our cause. So if you miss one and you keep your minnow and that minnow's dead, throw it out, grab another one. There we go. Got him that time. Another little guy. Like I say, you gotta sometimes just pick through those little dudes, find the little better ones. Unfortunately, there's no magic bait, I can tell you, that'll just allow you to catch bigger perch or jumbo perch. You know, you just gotta deal with it. But that's half the fun in getting there and finding the big guys. There we go, that's a better one. Yes, sir. That is a nice one right there. Oh my goodness. Now look at that one right there, folks. That's a nice little perch right there. And this is really become the typical size perch that we, can catch out here. The days of constantly catching jumbos off the lake shore, especially from shore, I mean, it's not what it used to be by any means, and the DNR has even come out and said that. But we're still able to get some perch of that size down here, and hopefully they'll keep going. What do you got there, Kris?
You got a little rainbow.
Holy cow! It sure is. We just talked about how the water was real cold, and it's below 60 degrees almost, surface temp. The west winds pushed that warm water out. We saw alewives this morning.
Yeah.
I said, boy, it's a matter of time before some salmonoids show up. There's a nice little bonus fish. The bite has sure kind of changed almost a little bit. Just within the last hour, it seemed like almost as soon as the bobber was hitting the water, the bobber's going down, and they were just slamming it. Now we're kind of floating her a bit, and then we're seeing, instead of that hard takedown, it's just an ease down. Sun's getting a little higher, and like I say, this water is still really clear. So it's something to keep an eye on. We're still getting the bites on the slip bobber, and still almost every time I try to grab that split shot rod, this bobber's going down. So there's no reason to abandon it, to go strictly to it, but keep an eye on it as the morning progresses or the time you're out here progresses. when that slip bobber bite dies, that's when you can go to that split shot type rig. Not quite a dink, but not quite those nice 7s or 8s. But still, nice little perch there. Minnow's still kicking, so we're going to reset them, put them right back out there. Well, I'll tell you, we've been really missing quite a few fish. Kris and I were just talking about it. It almost seems like we're feeding more than we're actually catching. And that happens sometimes, you know, especially when you get a lot of those little guys that mixed in here. And they're bait stealers. You know, they nicknamed them properly, the Yellow Bandits, for sure. But there's options too. If you don't want to run minnows, if you want to run like a Cubby Mini Mite or Gulp Alive minnow, even like small 1.5, 2-inch white tube jigs, we've caught them on that as well. So there's always options if you're getting a little frustrated with how much bait you're going through. I can't tell. I think he's a little guy. Yeah, that's a little guy. That is a dinkaroo. Go grow up. That one just kind of sucked it in there. Yeah, not a bad little perch. I mean, it's small, but you know, it's really wild how the bite's kind of different from just inside here to just on the outside. Kris is fishing more that outside, and when he's getting bites, I mean, they're just smoking it. But he's getting, seems to be, you know, less bites though. Inside here, we're getting more bites, but now that bite is becoming a lot more lethargic, so to speak. It's just that bobber's going down ever so slightly. Now, true, we're dealing with a little bit smaller perch, and that's just, unfortunately, you know, no fault of anybody's, but I mean, it's hard to maintain a fishery that gets pounded as hard as the perch do. And you think about not only us anglers coming out here and fishing these guys, but think about, you know, the commercial harvest for the perch. It's to say that the perch populations would ever go back to how they were in the, you know, 80s and 90s. I can't say that's probably going to happen. You know, there's a lot of factors that play into that. Think about, you know, the threat of the Asian carp getting in here. If that comes to be, that's really going to put a hindrance on a lot of your stocking efforts. It's going to put a big dent in the food source. There's already issues with the food source. You know, the DNR's come out and said the alewife population is low, shad populations are lower. There's issues. So to say the perch population will ever come back, plus, you know, how many times we are out here and we see guys that'll take these little smaller guys, these little dinks and even the 6s and 7s, and they're just throwing them right in the bucket. You know, we're never going to get back to the days of the jumbos if that keeps happening. Now, on the flip side, I also understand that if that's the best we're going to get is 7 and 8 inchers, you know, they're tasty. How do you deny someone a perch meal? But there's a lot of factors that play into how these fish are no longer as plentiful in the jumbo size. And it's just something to think about. And yeah, the stocking efforts have backed way off on them. You know, the DNR has tried different things with closing the seasons at different periods. You know, it used to always be the month of July was a closed season. Now it's, you know, I forgot the exact start date, but it wraps up on June 15th, you know. just various things they could do to try to help the population and sustain it. But as much as they're trying, it just seems to be a losing effort.
Another little perch.
Well, hey everybody, that's about all the time we have for this episode. And I hope we shed some light that there still are perch here in Lake Michigan. We got a few right on that verge where you could have said, yeah, these are keepers. A lot of little guys, a lot of little dinks too. My goodness, they were everywhere. But kind of a cool day. We saw some steelhead cruising. Kris caught that rainbow. We had what we think was a nice coho that you broke off. So we saw smallies cruising when we got here this morning.
Fish are moving.
Fish are moving. I'll tell you what, Lake Michigan is alive and well. And, come on down, fish the perch. Once we lose these west winds, the water's going to warm right back up. Well, then the salmon are going to push out. But still, for the time being, next couple days here, we'll probably still have a shot at them. But for sure, the perch will be here for quite a long while. The smallies are only going to get better. They're just wrapping up their spawn. So there's a lot of great opportunities, and hopefully we were able to shed some light and let some of our viewers know you're not alone if you're not constantly catching jumbos. This is Lake Michigan perch these days. Kris, I appreciate you being here, man.
Thank you.
We had a blast out here. That's all the time we have for this episode, and I'll tell you what, we can't wait to see you next time right here on Tony's Spot On Fishing.